Welcome back to High School Backups Podcast. Today we are going to be running through a mock draft with you. Obviously, this is a little bit different. You can't see our faces. Today we've got me, Kyle, and Steven all going through a mock draft. I'm going to be making the picks. Kyle and Steven are going to be telling me whether I'm dumb or not. You guys know how it goes. So, first on the clock right now, the worst team in the NFL, barring today's win over the Packers. We're recording this on Sunday about 5 o'clock Eastern Time. The Lions have just beaten the Packers. They'll probably no longer be in this worst pick spot. But right now, they do have the first pick in this draft. I've seen a lot of people in their midseason mock drafts giving the Lions a quarterback, being either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, the two top quarterbacks on the board. I am not going to do that. I think Jared Goff has played very well for them. I think they've invested in Jared Goff. I don't think they're going to switch that up. I'm going to give them Will Anderson Jr., the best player in the draft, the edge from Alabama. Guys, give me your thoughts.
Wow. I don't. I think. No, they have to go with some sort of quarterback there, Jake. They have to go with someone. They're desperate for one. Jared Goff cannot continue with this offense. He can't. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown as one of the best receivers, and Jared Goff can't get him the ball. And you're saying they shouldn't go for a quarterback?
Bro, Jared Goff has looked incredible this year, barring the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you can definitely build a team around Jared Goff because he's taken his team to the Super Bowl before, and he did very well. I mean, he outdueled Patrick Mahomes that season. So Jared Goff definitely has potential. I honestly, here's what he could possibly do. I mean, depending on if there's number one pick talent available at the top. So who'd you have them picking again?
I have them picking Will Anderson Jr. I think their defense is atrocious, and adding Will Anderson next to Aiden Hutchinson on the opposite side of the defensive line will greatly enhance that. Will Anderson Jr. is in that mold of pure edge rusher. He can rush the edge like a Micah Parsons. He doesn't do everything else that Micah Parsons does. I don't think that's an absolutely wonderful comp. But Will Anderson Jr. is absolutely athletic. He can get after the passer. His stats are a little bit down this year, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been effective. He's gotten after quarterbacks. He's caused quarterback hurries. His pass rush win rate is incredible. The dude is just an absolute animal, and I think he's the best player in the draft, maybe besides Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas. And I don't think you can pass up that talent if you're the Detroit Lions when your defense is that bad.
And I mean, at the very least, too, I mean, one thing that is very possible. There are, I don't know which teams, but there are teams that have more than one first round pick in the draft. And because you have a lot of time, the Lions are one of them. So here's something the Lions could also do. You have a lot of draft picks as well. You could potentially use that to your advantage to get actually some pretty great star players that you can potentially trade for. That is possible. And even better, you can take that first pick, and if there's talent that the Lions believe they can wait later in the draft, you could use that first round draft pick to get a lot of capital from it. So I could actually see the Lions using this to their advantage and potentially trading out of the number one pick and getting a lot of picks from it, so that going forward you have draft capital you can use for a really good player. And even better, next season, if you're able to draft down, maybe get some more defense, maybe pick up a really good offensive player, you can use that if Jared Goff has another year that he fails, you now have multiple draft picks you can use to your advantage to either get a quarterback in the draft or, hell, even trade for one from another team. So I kind of see the Lions, depending on what talent is available, they could potentially use that. You know, the Dolphins turn the number 3 pick into 3 players. So I think the Lions could see that and do the same thing.
No, that's also a possibility. I mean, I don't think they'll end up with this number one pick. I don't think they're the worst team in the NFL. I really don't. But I'm going to move on to the second pick. We're going to talk about the Houston Texans. And we all know that I love Davis Mills, but the biggest need on that Texans roster is a quarterback. I think that's absolutely, just given the people on the board, you have CJ Stroud and you have Bryce Young. Personally, I like Bryce Young more than I like CJ Stroud. I haven't gone in depth in my quarterback evaluations, yet.
Mhm.
That is subject to change when I do those quarterback evaluations in the spring. But for now, the Texans are going to take Bryce Young out of Alabama at number 2. And essentially, you guys can just tell me whether I should have gone C.J. Stroud here or Bryce Young. No need to go in depth on anything else.
CJ Stroud all day long. All day long.
I don't think Steve even has a comment on this. He's just like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Take either of them. They're both really good. It doesn't matter because you know where the
But the
number.
funny thing is
Go ahead.
or sorry to interrupt, Jake, but
No,
like
you're good.
honestly too, it's I always look at the draft as well. Like people you can fight for can just turn into the biggest bust ever. I mean, I can imagine the 49ers had a chance to go back on their trade if they could potentially take that 3rd round pick and instead themselves, trading up, being like, oh, if we could have done something similar and just gotten the players that the Dolphins did, I'm sure they would have taken back on going for their quarterback. So who knows? These quarterbacks could be 100% busts because that is always so possible.
I'm not going to lie to you. If the 49ers could do it again, they'd make that trade again, but they'd draft Justin Fields instead of Trey Lance. I think that's absolutely
Yes.
fact. Now,
Yes.
moving to that number 3 pick, we got the Panthers. They're going to take the other quarterback. Baker obviously isn't the answer. He came in the second half today and played really well, but he's still not the answer. C.J. Stroud, probably he's the second, if not the first best quarterback. It's more 1A, 1B at this point. Again, I haven't done my quarterback evaluations. Can't wait to do those for y'all. But I have the number 3 pick being C.J. Stroud. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good one too. If it's not CJ Stroud going as the first quarterback, then he definitely should be the second quarterback. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are definitely going to be the 1-2 punch there. So
We're gonna
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I can't.
No,
see
you're
you
good,
guys
you're
right
good.
now, so
no, you're good. I mean, the Panthers as well. I mean, they could try to go for another quarterback. I mean, at the end of the day, is that going to do much for you? I really don't know, but they got a lot of stuff they got to focus on. So they really, and the other thing too is a quarterback's value can plummet in that time. But if there isn't a quarterback available, then turn into draft capital again and get a lot of players, and then try to shoot for the following year potentially. But I don't know. The Panthers, any quarterback going to the Panthers, no matter what, I have zero hope for them realistically.
that's the same way I felt when Justin Fields went to the Bears. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Next
Yep.
up at number 4, pick 4. This very well could be a higher draft slot for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, this is sorry, Kenny Pickett. Welcome to Josh Rosenland, where they're going to replace you immediately. They're going to go quarterback out of Kentucky, Will Levis with the 4th overall pick. We've got a run of quarterbacks on the board. And again, I don't think that the Steelers can go any other way than quarterback here. I just really don't.
Nope.
Like, the biggest need on their offense besides their offensive line is quarterback. I don't see Kenny Pickett being the answer. He was my 1B quarterback. I had him and Malik Willis graded about the same last year, but he just hasn't shown me anything that would excite me enough to keep him after a year.
I'm surprised you didn't go with that offensive line need that they need, Jake. I was thinking you were honestly going with Skoronski as their pick here.
That was a thought process, but I think their quarterback need is higher. It comes down to what the Steelers decide they want to do with Kenny Pickett, and I'm not high on Kenny Pickett after watching him for 4 games. I'm just not.
No.
You know I love him. I love small hands Pickett. Come on, let him play.
I mean, maybe get offensive line, try to improve that, but it's I don't know. Now you have a division where you actually have some pretty great pass rushers, so who knows at that point.
I also think the Steelers are absolutely missing TJ Watt, and I think they'll probably spend a little bit of money they have in cap space on their offensive line in free agency. I just think that that's where they're going to go. I don't think there's going to be a quarterback available where they can upgrade, and Will Levis becomes an immediate day 1 starter in that room. He just does. I'm going to move on to Jacksonville, who I believe could do a number of different things here. They could look edge. They could look interior defensive line with Jalen Carter. I think their biggest need is probably going to be adding more talent to that wide receiver room for Trevor Lawrence. And there are 2 big names on the board here with Jackson Smith and Jigba out of Ohio State and Kayshon Boutte out of LSU. And Jordan Addison out of USC. It could be any one of these 3 guys. I'm going to go with the talent out of LSU and Kayshon Boutte. And I think that's the right pick here. But guys, tell me what you think here. Should the Jaguars have gone defense or add to that wide receiver room?
Um, defense,
Hey.
defense definitely probably should be the right call. Because I don't think. I think Jacksonville can survive with the current wide receivers they have, at least to continue. But at the rate they're going, they're not going to be able to keep any points off the board with that defense they have. So that's why I think defense probably is the better call. But I understand where you're going with it, Jake, to try and get him more offensive weapons, like Cincinnati did with Joe Burrow. They went out and they got him Jamar Chase right away, so they had that star power. And I can understand maybe that's what Jacksonville would do in that situation. So I see where you're going with it.
I actually think defense might work out because at the very least, they traded for Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Marvis Jones Jr.'s, and their
Christian Kirk.
running back that they have, Christian Kirk,
Travis
and their
Etienne
current
is
running
the
back,
Sorry, my bad.
ETN. No, you're good. So ETN, you have an offense you can definitely work with, and if Calvin Ridley is able to play like he did with Matt Ryan, you have your number one receiver. So what's the next thing you can go for? I kind of either like offensive line, protect Lawrence, or go for a really good pass rusher. And no matter what, if one of those two are available, depending on who's up there, I actually probably going for a really good pass rusher might be good for that point. And if not, I recommend offensive line just to protect your guy a little bit, and then pick up maybe some linebackers near the end. But
I think this is on the this pick is definitely on the assumption that Calvin Ridley doesn't play because he's technically indefinitely suspended.
Yep.
But I understand why you guys would go defense there. I don't think there's any other position on their offense besides the receiver room that they would upgrade at this spot. I mean, you could go a guy like Peter Skoransky. I don't think that's necessarily where I would go there. And I'm going to move on to the 6th pick with the Raiders. I think you're looking at two things here. You're looking at the offensive line, and you're looking at the interior of their defensive line. The interior of their defensive line, the Raiders can't stop the run for anything. I just don't. They can't. It's awful. And their offensive line isn't great either. Derek Carr has been under pressure all year. We all know that their offensive line wasn't great heading into the season, and it's something that they need to address at some point. I actually don't have them doing it here. I think they're going to take BPA, go best player available at a position of need, and go the defensive tackle from Georgia, Jalen Carter.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, with the Raiders, especially in their situation, what they're looking at is a division where you really need to do what you can to eliminate the run. And when you're playing against Patrick Mahomes, especially, if you want to bring in especially pressure from the interior of that offensive line, that definitely can help close the pocket, because then you have really good pass rushers on the left and right side. So if you have the two of them in there, if you have at least one defensive tackle pushing in the middle of the offensive line, that can definitely swarm Mahomes or even Justin Herbert. And I think the Raiders should pick up a veteran at tackle, just to be on the safe side, someone they can work with. Hell, maybe even trade for somebody from the Patriots. Maybe McDaniels, if he still has a job, pick somebody up. But I like defensive tackle. Stopping the run is definitely helpful when you have, if they're healthy, you still have a great receiving core that you can use. So I like a defensive tackle for them.
I like it. I'm going to move on to the Bucs at the 7th pick. I think the Bucs are... we even tweeted it out a few minutes ago that the entire Bucs offense right now, their entire season rests on their run game. But what that offense is missing is a key tight end that Tom Brady has had for the last decade and a half of his career, where he's had Gronkowski. The only tight end that would even be remotely picked this high is the tight end from Notre Dame, Michael Mayer. And I believe that if they are picking this high, again, I don't believe they will at the end of the season. I think this team makes the playoffs. I don't count Tom Brady out for anything. If they're going to pick at 7 with the current standings right now, they're going to go tight end, try to get that Gronk replacement in Michael Mayer, and I honestly don't even think it's a question. I really don't.
Yeah.
You think they would... Sorry, Steve, go for it.
No, you go, Kyle. You go.
You really think that Tampa would honestly pick a tight end that high, though? Because
He's
we've all seen what.
he's worth it.
I mean, just say, yeah, but that's what people said about Kyle Pitts, and look how that's working out for him.
Kyle Pitts is still an athletic freak and should be used more. I don't care what anybody else has to say about that. And I know that you're not high on Kyle Pitts, Kyle, but you're the only person on the planet who's not.
That is not true.
That's
not true.
It is true.
Also, you have to look at the. He's on a okay. Let's not get too deep into this, but he's on a limited offensive team as well. That's mostly a run team. But I think the Bucks can definitely, if they can go for a tight end, depending on where they're drafted, I think that's a great idea for most likely Kyle Trask to throw to, because Brady needs to be done after the season.
I don't necessarily think that's true either. I think Brady's played fine, but that's a whole nother video that we can talk about. I'm going to move on to the 8th pick here with the Philadelphia Eagles, who have this pick from the San Francisco 49ers in the, or is it the 49ers? No, it's the Saints. Sorry, it is the Saints here, who they traded. I forget who it was for this pick, but this is essentially just pick whatever you want because your team's already stacked, so who really cares? They're going to go best player available. I mean, I would have given them Jalen Carter at this spot as a Fletcher Cox replacement had he been available at this point, but he is not. What can the Philadelphia Eagles really upgrade with here? They have A.J. Brown. They have Devontae Smith. I mean, at this point, do you just go all in on Jalen Hurts and add a third receiver to that offensive line? Do you add a fourth edge rusher? Do you add another corner to the cornerback room in Keely Ringo? Could you draft your Lane Johnson replacement with Skoronski, Paris Johnson, somebody else like that? There are a lot of things they could do here. I'm struggling to figure this out because their team is already stacked.
I mean, their team is stacked, but if there's a really, so you have an offense with a great receiver and a very good receiver. You know, you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You have Miles Sanders, who's great, an awesome offensive line, great tight end. So honestly, what's the way your defense can get better? If your defense can rush and then cover in the backfield, what's something you want? Honestly, if you can get yourself an athletic linebacker, that also means your middle of the field is covered up really well. So here's the thing. A team that has great outside coverage and a great pass rush, you still can beat them in the middle of the field. So if you have a very athletic linebacker, you get two advantages to that. One, you get somebody right in the middle that can, like Devin White, that can read the quarterback's eyes, sneak in, get plenty of picks or pressure or coverage in zone, or you have a spy for another running quarterback too. So if the Eagles have their bases covered with a very smart quarterback who wants to go to the middle of the field like a Tom Brady, or you have a very athletic quarterback, potentially like Kyler Murray, who you have a spy to keep an eye on. So I think a very athletic, multi-purpose coverage linebacker in the middle just makes this defense harder to deal with because it's, you can definitely beat a team going in the slot, but now you add another element to the middle of the field that, people think it's, very overlooked, and now you can't even touch it.
Steve, I would agree with you, except there's not that guy in this draft. And honestly, something you said did make me sway towards cornerback Keely Ringo. I don't think James Bradbury, the pickup from the Giants, can continue to play at the same level that he's been playing at. I would pick up the corner, add to that cornerback depth, and continue to move forward with that. You already have 3 pass rushers, and you just added Robert Quinn. So, honestly, I don't think their defense gets worse anytime soon, and adding another corner just makes it 10 times better.
And what that means is you have plenty of really good defensive backs who are very smart in zone coverage, but at the same time, if you need to run 5 rushers just to build pressure, you have man-to-man. Now you have 3 corners. Let's say James Bradbury can do really well, but if you put him on a double team, now the offense has become, or the defense has become harder to throw on. So you get another competent corner in there. That means you can slip more bodies to your pass rush because you have a higher volume of competent corners that can take care of everything.
No, I mean, I agree. We're going to try to speed this up a little bit just so we can get through the first round. And we're only doing the first round today, but we're going to speed this up per pick. I'm going to make picks quicker. You guys just give me yes, no, give me some analysis. Let's keep it moving and be it fresh. We're moving
Yep.
to the 9th pick with the Texans. You got Bryce Young. You have Brandon Cooks. I think they add Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State and just make the offense, continue to build on that offense. Their defenses look fine at times. They added a lot of defensive firepower last year with Derek Stingley, and they're going to continue to build this draft towards their offense. I think that's the right way to go. Guys, you agree?
Yes.
Yep,
100%.
that's good.
Absolutely. I think it would have made more sense if they had drafted CJ Stroud if they were going to go this route, but at the same time, Bryce Young right now is probably QB1 on their board. And so now we're moving to the 10th pick with the Seahawks, and honestly, I think there's a lot of ways the Seahawks go here. Despite the fact that they're winning a lot and, playing well, I still don't think it's a wonderful roster. They could go quarterback, but Geno Smith is playing incredible, and he's still under contract for the next few years from what I understand. So I think they're going to add to their defense. I think they're going to go edge out of pass rusher and Miles Murphy out of Clemson.
It makes sense for them to do that for sure. So I don't think that's wrong at all.
No.
That's a fair assumption.
And a lot of people have them taking Bijan Robinson or something around this spot, which I don't think makes any sense. I like the way Rashad Penny has played. I like the way their offensive line has played in recent weeks, and they did build that offensive line last year. I think they continue to do it in free agency, but not through the draft. We're moving on to the Cardinals at 11. Again, a team that I think will pick later. Now that DeAndre Hopkins is back, I don't see it being a huge problem. This team needs pass rushers. They also need interior defensive line. We all know this. Their defense isn't exactly wonderful. I think they could also go corner here. But I'm going to go best player available on defense, at least when it comes to pass rushers, and go BJ Ojulari out of LSU.
Yep. I like it. That's good.
And we've actually got the Bears moving into their first pick of the draft at 12. They lost the Dolphins today, but they kept it close. That is something that was absolutely ridiculous. I was very surprised at that. They just
Embarrassing for the Dolphins, for sure.
I don't know how that's happened. But you have the Bears. They have $125 million in cap space in free agency. I think that's where they're going to try to build their offensive line. I think this becomes a pick for a weapon for Justin Fields. I'm going to go Jordan Addison out of USC. I think he's the third best receiver in this class, arguably the best receiver in this class, depending on who you talk to. And even with the addition of Chase Claypool, they have Darnell Mooney. Adding Jordan Addison into that room gives them a pure route runner that can just create separation. I think it's the right move. Getting Justin Fields, somebody who's always going to be open, is going to be absolutely crucial for his development in year 3.
Yeah, and even better, just your team can run the ball, so you give him a weapon, becomes develop him as a thrower. When he's a great runner, develop him as a thrower. Yeah, that's great for the Bears.
Oh man, and we're Kyle, what are your thoughts? You think that's a good idea?
I do. I think that's the best case scenario for them. So I
Yep.
think that's a fair choice.
And I mean, they could have gone Peter Skoronski here. I have the offensive tackles kind of falling on this board a little bit, which I think is absolutely fine depending on the needs of all these teams. We do have the Green Bay Packers here. And obviously, they need a receiver, and the best one left is Quentin Johnson from TCU, and I don't think you can justify taking him this high. They added to their defense last year with Quay Walker. They've done a bunch of different things in the back end. Their cornerback room is solid, but David Bakhtiari isn't getting any younger, and I think this is where their offensive line starts to get solidified. I'm going to have them taking Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern, who for some reason the mock draft that I'm using has him as the third best offensive tackle in this draft. I couldn't disagree more. I think he's the best tackle in this draft, and that's the way I'm going to go for the Packers here. I know they need wide receivers. I think they can get them down the board, so I'm not necessarily worried here.
And I mean, just if you could get somebody in the offseason, or there's a lot of running backs and receivers available for free agency this year too. So if you can do that, just go for it. Yeah, Packers, just protect Aaron Rodgers, give him time. He can extend plays, but who knows if he's still playing next year.
Kyle, you happy about the Peter Skoronski pick? I know you mentioned him earlier.
I did mention him earlier, and I think that's probably. I don't think he falls this low, but I understand where you're coming from with him being taken here.
Of course, this is a mid-season mock draft. All of this changes with free agency and different things going on after the season. See who gets picked back up, see who leaves, see who stays. The 14th pick belongs to the Lions, and at 1 they picked Will Anderson Jr., edge rusher out of Alabama. I think this continues to be a defensive draft for them, and honestly, I think they love Penei Sewell so much, they will be taking his brother, Noah Sewell, the linebacker out of Oregon, in this draft to bolster that front 7.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's a definite fair choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, with the Detroit Lions, I think everything they need to do is on their defensive side. Again, through the first 9 games of the year, they have one of the best offenses in the NFL. And barring injuries, and when they get Jamison Williams back and DeAndre Swift back, I think it only gets back to that point. So I really think if they have these 2 high up picks, they're going to be stacking on defense.
Yes, and that honestly is going to help them out a lot. And I mean, this again, draft capital. You can still keep this pick, maybe get multiple picks. You get a lot of defensive players. So the Lions get a high draft pick. Honestly, they're set up pretty damn well this season or this next upcoming draft to have one like the Jets, but they have a better foundation of a team to be successful, I believe.
I would agree with that. I think their defense just needs to be built, and I still like Dan Campbell as a head coach. I don't think he's on the hot seat yet. I think that the players rally around him and play hard for him, and I think that makes a lot. I think that keeps him around for a while. We're gonna move on to pick 15 with the Indianapolis Colts here, and we all know what this pick is gonna be. It's gonna be a quarterback. Anthony Richardson has wonderfully fallen to them here, and I'm gonna take Anthony Richardson out of Florida for the Indianapolis Colts. This pick also could be Hendon Hooker, but he is going to be 25 at the time of the draft, and I think that makes him fall a little bit.
I think it's interesting that you have them taking a quarterback when they drafted Ellinger last year, and they still have Matt Ryan.
Sam Ehlinger isn't the answer, and clearly Matt Ryan isn't either.
No, I don't agree Matt Ryan's the answer, but Ellinger I think could play if they fix the problems that are there.
Nah, man, I watched what the Patriots defense did to him today. No.
Yeah.
Well, their defense is better than that offensive line all day long. So you're trying to fight like fire with grease is essentially what's happening with that argument. But
No, I watched what the Patriots defense did to him today. I like Sam Ehlinger. He's a good backup quarterback. I don't think he's a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. And again, hook 'em horns. I like Texas as a football program. That's just not, it isn't the answer. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals at 16. Again, I picked a pick that I think will drop. I think the Bengals are going to pick up some wins here in the mid to late season. But if they're going to
pick just did today.
Yeah, they already picked up a win, and they annihilated the Carolina Panthers. But if they're going to pick up somebody, I think, again, you have to bolster that offensive line, which has, again, been an issue. I think you go Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State, the offensive tackle.
I like that.
Good choice.
I like that kind of pick.
And
I mean, give Joe Burrow more protection. Oh, sorry, but give Joe Burrow more protection, and it's going to be lights out for a lot of defenses for sure.
No, and I know that they spent money in the offseason to bolster the offensive line. It has worked a little bit, but not to the extent I think they were hoping for. So going and getting a young offensive tackle that can play the right side is probably the best bet here. The Patriots at 17. My biggest problem is I don't know where they want to go because it's not like I don't see any offensive tackles on the board that I would choose to replace those Isaiah Wynn or Marcus Cannon. Maybe they take Broderick Jones here out of Georgia. That is a possibility. They could go linebacker here. Honestly, with Damian Harris being on the last year of his deal, I think there's a reasonable argument to be made that they go Bijan Robinson here.
Yeah, and pick up a running back too so that you don't have to spend money on Damian Harris, which unfortunately I believe is going to ask for more money than what he is worth.
But the problem is they have Ramondre Stevenson. They picked up Pierre Strong Jr. They have J.J. Taylor. They have a committee of backs that can go. And if you're picking up a guy like Bijan Robinson, you're expecting him to be a Saquon Barkley-esque running back. And I just don't think that's what the Patriots are going for. I'm going to give them the offensive tackle to replace Isaiah Wynn and Broderick Jones. I don't love the pick, but I think it's out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a fair choice.
No, you go, Kyle.
I was just going to say, I think out of everything the Patriots need, I do see, offensive line probably being good replacement there because they do have the potential of losing a couple of star powers in the free agency. So I think that's a good choice for them to replace that.
Like,
Yeah.
would I like to see a wide receiver here? Maybe, sure, but I don't think there's one on the board. I'm not necessarily in love with Quentin Johnson out of TCU, and he's yet to prove to me that he's really like a first round talent guy. I know he's played pretty well since coming back, but he hasn't like proven it to me, I guess. And so I'm going to go with the offensive tackle. I think it's the biggest need, and it's a pick out of necessity, but I don't necessarily hate it. When it comes to the Washington Commanders at 18, I think this comes down to do they admit the Carson Wentz thing isn't working out necessarily how they hoped, or do they stick with Carson Wentz? In this universe, I'm going to say they don't. Hendon Hooker has played his way into being a first-round pick, even with the game against Georgia yesterday. I mean, I still think Hendon Hooker is a very good quarterback. I think he can play football. I think he makes incredible reads. I think he's smart. I think he doesn't turn the ball over. That is exactly what Washington needs. I'm going to go with Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee here. He's an older rookie. He'll play right away in Washington, and I think it's a perfect fit for him.
I like it.
I also like it. I think Carson Wentz is definitely not the answer for the Commanders, so that's a great choice, Jake.
We're going to move to the Atlanta Falcons at 19. Again, this could be a plethora of different options. They did just get rid of Calvin Ridley, so how much do they like Drake London and the rest of that receiver room, including Kyle Pitts? I'm not necessarily sure because outside of Drake London and Kyle Pitts, I really don't know who Marcus Mariota and or Desmond Ridder have to throw to. I could see them going Quentin Johnson here. I'm going to take a look at the wide receivers on the board, including Josh Downs from North Carolina, who's pretty good. Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee, Zay Flowers out of Boston College, all really good receivers. I'm not in love with any of them. So I'm just going to give them the best receiver on the board and go Quentin Johnson. I think that's probably the smartest move they could make here. Do you guys agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And this brings me to the Denver Broncos, who somehow have a first-round pick. I'm not sure what this trade is from. I'm really not, because I know they traded
Bradley
away.
Chubb.
Is it the Bradley Chubb trade? Did they get a first round for that? Okay. So
Yep.
this is one of the Dolphins picks. Got it. This, again, could be a plethora of things. I think they need offensive line more than anything. I'm not loving the offensive linemen on the board, and I think you can get them later in the draft, especially where they're going to be drafting in the second round. There could be a lot of different things that the Denver Broncos go here. I'm going to go with the BPA, best player available, and Trenton Simpson, the linebacker out of Clemson. I think it only makes sense. Their defense needs help. Their offense needs help. They haven't looked wonderful. Anybody disagree? Anybody think I should have gone a different move here?
No.
No, I think you're good.
Nah, it's pretty good right there.
Yes. The ever illustrious Los Angeles Chargers, who are the most confusing team in football. This team has the talent to be a Super Bowl contender, and for some reason is never there. I'm going to go with the fact that this starts with their run defense. Their interior defensive line isn't wonderful. Their interior linebackers, regardless of what Kenneth Murray may or may not be doing at this point, hasn't been wonderful. Kenneth Murray hasn't developed the way they wanted him to. There's no linebackers on the board that make any sense, but Brian Breesy, the defensive tackle out of Clemson, makes a lot of sense for their system. Big nose tackle, can stuff the run, can get after the passer a little bit. That's not really his game, but he can do it. I'm going to give him a defensive tackle, bolster the interior of their defense, and help them stop the run.
I like that, or maybe a really good team doctor to get their, pardon my French, get their fucking wide receivers healthy. But I like defensive tackle.
They could go wide receiver here, but again, there's nobody here that would make sense for them. I don't know, man. They need a third receiver on that team, but it's not necessarily something that I would prioritize in round one with nobody on the board.
Hi, Riley.
Hi, Riley. So we're actually back to the Seahawks, who also have 2 first-round picks. We're looking at the Seahawks took Miles Murphy earlier in the draft to bolster their edge. Again, I think this becomes more of a they need to rebuild their defense. Their offense has looked pretty good throughout the year. I'm going to give them the best corner available in Cam Smith out of South Carolina, true boundary corner, well over 6 feet tall, can cover on the outside, somebody who helps rebuild that Legion of Boom a little bit, considering their defense hasn't been the same since those Legion of Boom corners and safeties with Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, and Brandon Browner. Anybody have a disagreement there?
Nope.
Nope.
Everybody thinks corner is good for them. They need to bolster their defense. If they really put in effort and get a good defense, they could be a playoff contender next season. I'm absolutely adamant about that. I think Geno Smith, if he continues to play the way he's playing, is going to be their starter for the next, 3 or 4 years.
I agree.
Yep.
This is
going to be very good for them.
I love it. Another confusing football team. For some reason, the Jets just keep winning, even though their roster doesn't tell me that they should win anything. The Jets now have Breece Hall, James Robinson, and Michael Carter in their backfield. I don't know what to tell you about that. That's actually kind of ridiculous. Where can the Jets get better?
Offensive line. Protect Wilson if you can. If there's anybody available, protect Zach Wilson. Your defense, their defense is honestly doing fine, but just keep defending Zach Wilson, because if he keeps getting pressure and throwing picks, there's not much you can really do there. But also, with a better offensive line, you are able to really take advantage of this run game. So I think if they can get themselves a good guard on the inside, I like their chances.
See, I'm actually going to go offensive tackle here because of the fact that Mekhi Becton hasn't been healthy. If Mekhi Becton has been healthy, this probably becomes a guard pick with Osiris Torrance out of Florida. But I'm going to go Matthew Bergeron out of Syracuse, who's actually been a high riser considering Syracuse has played so well. He's been really good. I think this is a guy that the Jets can just plug in and play. He can pass protect. He can run block. He's really solid. I like the pick for the Jets, and continuing to protect Zach Wilson is an absolute must.
Yes.
Kyle,
defend your franchise guy.
I don't know where they should go from here, but I do think protecting the franchise quarterback at all costs is the best bet.
I like it. The Baltimore Ravens, there's no other way to go but wide receiver. I don't care who's on the board. I like Jalen Hyatt. I know that he's essentially a grade round 2, 3. Josh Downs is here. Marvin Mims, Zay Flowers. I think you have to reach. According to this, the best wide receiver on the board is Josh Downs. I really like Jalen Hyatt. I really like Zay Flowers out of Boston College. I'm going to go with the one that this mock draft has the highest, but I could see this being Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee or Zay Flowers out of Boston College, but I'm going to go with Josh Downs out of North Carolina. I don't think there's any question that their biggest need is wide receiver.
Yeah. That's good enough for me.
Either that or running back too, but I think J.K. Dobbins, when healthy, will be fine. But I do think he just has been very injury prone the past couple seasons. So, but I do agree, wide receiver is probably more prevalent of an issue to fix since they only have Devin Duvernay. So, I agree with your decision, but running back is another option for them, I think.
That could be a place where Bijan Robinson does go. If they get Bijan Robinson, that backfield is probably one of the best in the NFL, considering they have Lamar Jackson and Bijan Robinson in it. I wouldn't mind that pick, but I do think it has to be a wide receiver. The Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, man.
Linebacker or corner.
Yeah.
Their secondary is allowing the highest passer rating at over 100. That's really bad if you want to win a Super Bowl. So,
I'm with you. I think it just comes down to which one you pick. There are 3 or 4 guys here. You can go Antonio Johnson out of A&M. You can go Clark Phillips III out of Utah. I'm going to go Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. I'm really high on Joey Porter Jr. I think he's going to be a really good corner in the NFL, and I think it's a really great pickup late in the first round for the Chiefs.
Agreed.
I mean, again, this could be another place where they go Bijan Robinson just to add more offensive firepower. Like, when you're getting down into these bottom-tier teams here, or top-tier teams, really, but the last picks in the first round, it could be any number of these teams that pick up Bijan Robinson, who I think is Saquon Barkley-esque of generational running back. Bijan's an absolute animal. But that's just, I don't think that that's where he goes. The Dallas Cowboys. This team needs a safety so bad that I have no problem
Yes.
giving them Jordan Battle out of Alabama without any hesitation here. You could go Brandon Joseph out of Notre Dame. I'm going to go with the Alabama safety. Alabama has produced great safeties into the league, and that's where that's going to end. It's going to stay right there. Jordan Battle's going to be great. I'm going to give him Jordan Battle. End story.
Yeah, Dan Quinn with a really good safety. Yeah, that's great for them.
Kyle, your favorite team, the New York Giants, are next.
Yes.
There are a lot of things I think they could do here. I'm gonna
Don't
let
do me dirty.
I'm gonna
Don't
let
do me
you
dirty.
tell me what the biggest need for the New York Giants is, and I'm gonna pick a player from the position you tell me. Is it edge? Is it linebacker? Is it offensive line? Is it wide receiver? What is it?
Right now, I'm so sick of watching Daniel Jones throw to backup practice squad players. For the
Yes.
love of God, please get us a wide receiver. One that isn't going to fake an injury either. That would be better on my end. But, a wide receiver that can catch the ball would be amazing. So,
Okay.
there's just
I am going to warn you that the top 3 receivers on the board are the 70, 71st, and 76 projected players on this board. I think Zay Flowers, Jalen Hyatt, and Marvin Mims are both higher ranked than that, but that's what this mock draft has them at. Jalen Hyatt and Zay Flowers are my 2 favorites out of those 3. I'm going to go with a big-bodied receiver who can run routes, make physical catches at the point of attack, somebody that Daniel Jones can just toss the ball up to and let him go. That is Jalen Hyatt.
good.
I like it. That's good for the Giants.
Yes.
Oh, the Tennessee Titans. How I really hate your offensive line and think you need to bolster it. I have no problem giving them a guard in Osiris Torrance. I also think this could be an edge player like Isaiah Foskey. I think they need to also bolster their edge rush. Jeffrey Simmons is great in the interior. They lost... why am I blanking on his name right now? Their edge rusher. Who is he? He was out of Boston College a couple years ago.
I can't remember.
Whatever his name is.
Bud Dupree?
No. But Dupree's still available. They lost him before the season. It's fine. I think you could add an edge here, but I think offensive line's your biggest need. Osiris Torrance out of Florida, absolutely plug and play day one.
Yeah, and I mean you give Derrick Henry, better running options as well. So maybe he doesn't truck as many people, so he can go a little bit longer. So I think that's a good pick.
We all know the Minnesota Vikings secondary is absolutely garbage. I'm going to go with Clark Phillips out of Utah here. I also think it could be the edge in Isaiah Foskey, but we're going to go Clark Phillips III out of Utah as a corner.
Yep.
Good pick.
There are a lot of talented players left on the board. We've only got 2 picks to go. The Buffalo Bills, this is where I go Bijan Robinson. I think they're just going to add to that offense and make it absolutely unstoppable. If they add Bijan Robinson to this offense, this is a team that can go 15-2 next year. Don't at me.
Yeah, or just maybe extra protection if you can. That would be really good.
I'm just gonna go with Bijan. If Bijan Robinson is available at 30 for the Buffalo Bills, I don't even think you question it. I think you just go for it and be done with it. And what did we give the Eagles earlier? We gave them Keely Ringo out of Georgia at corner. Again, I think this just becomes, who's the best player on the board. And there are 2 edge rushers I could see them adding here in Nolan Smith out of Georgia and Isaiah Foskey. I don't know why this mock draft has Nolan Smith going down this far. I think he's a way better player, and it just slipped my mind. I'm going to give them Nolan Smith out of Georgia immediately, add to their pass rush. Their defense gets a big boost, and that's what I'm going to say there. Anybody have any issues with that?
Nope. All good here.
And so just to recap for you, I'm going to scroll through all of these just for the people who are watching, and you guys tell me what I did right, what I did wrong, and I think it's a pretty good mock draft for the midseason. And thank you guys for tuning in. Go follow our socials, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, High School Backups, and we will see you guys soon. Peace.
Peace.
Be kind to someone.